Okay, thanks again for rejoining us on the program TMI on the ITV network. Still reviewing the outcomes of the Edo State governorship election, because it's important that we have very robust analysis of how the election went, so we can have better projections for the next election, subsequent elections, both at the state level, even at the national level. It's a civil society day so far on the show today to engage these issues in a very, very robust manner. Let me welcome our panelists here in the studio. Comrade Solomon Ijugbe, frontline civil society activist, former state chairman of the Youth Council of Nigeria, the State Council, and South-South coordinator. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. We also have with us on the show Comrade Peter Agwebo is also a frontline civil society activist. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Joining us via Zoom, we have the programs officer of Impact Development Initiative, Waila Omozigo. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Waila. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, Comrade Solomon Idogbe, the Edo election is come and gone, and because a winner has emerged, and we know that other things, will follow. That's at the level of the political parties and their respective candidates. In fact, I had an engagement with one of them today, the only female governorship candidate, and the engagement were quite exciting and interactive and revealing, as it were. But on the part of civil society networks, the civil society, they were quite involved in this election, creating platforms for engagement, for interaction, for advocacy. Now the election is over. What are the major takeaways in this election? On the negative side and on the positive side, what are the lessons from this election, both for the civil society, the political parties, the critical stakeholders like INEC and security agents?
Major takeaway is just that people should learn to do things the way it should go. Because when you plant a seed, it takes time to germinate. And for us, INEC made much improvement than the previous elections we have observed in terms of mobilization, reach out, constant interactions with civil society. We had plenty of engagement. For the police, while we sat down to make some review a few days ago, we acknowledged one fact that the security agencies were more civil in this election than any other one we had ever seen. Yes, while some thought that the massive turnout of security agencies, for instance, the police deployed about 35,000 policemen, NSCDC said about 15,000, and on and on. But one thing we saw was that they were cordial, they were very coordinated. And then for the politicians, we should learn that whatever you do, you must put the people first. A whole lot of things happen during the elections. A whole lot of things happen during the elections. On the part of the politicians, starting from the drumbeat of war that really charged up the atmosphere. Statistically, it's recorded that about 20 to 21% voters' participation in the elections. But one thing it goes to show that there's loss of confidence in elections. And if we do not take time, it's still going to go far lower in coming elections. For instance, people are yet to be satisfied over the 2023 presidential elections results. And then the drumbeat of war that came out prior to the elections, the pre-election arrangement, created another level of fear. And some also argue that the announcement of 35,000 police officers to Edo created another round of fears. But that's why quickly we need to put in perspective that during our patrols, observations, monitoring, we never saw acts of intimidations by either the police, army, or other sister security agencies. Although unverifiable evidence are popping from some political actors,
Okay.
saying that in the nights they were harassed by police. But what we were concerned was the prior to the elections, during the elections, the collations of the results. Okay. So if anything happened behind the back door, we may not be able to account for that. But generally, simply put, like you have said, election has come and gone. We expect that whoever is aggrieved, because in every contestation there must be a winner, whether rightly or wrongly. Because like I said, people are still not too at home with the result of the last 2023 presidential election.
Okay.
But those who were aggrieved went to court. And then there was a final judgment. And then that's where we are. So one would expect that whoever is aggrieved, rather than continue to heighten tension in the state, because as we speak, Edo is still in that probable fear of what may happen, unknown.
Yeah.
And so a whole lot of things are seen, because we are aware that almost on a daily basis, some groups are always out making protestations over results and whatever. So for us, there's a direct prescribed arrangement for elections or votes, elections grudge.
Okay.
Grudge.
Okay.
Go to court, do it the legal way. Because as we speak, for instance, we at the civil society level are not comfortable with the probable fear in the air, the tension in the air over the just concluded elections. So we are not comfortable coming out on the hunger protest. Not as though we are satisfied with what's it's on ground.
Yeah.
You understand? Policies and programs of federal government may not be as we expected.
Yeah.
And prior to this, we had agreed that come 1st of October, while the nation will be thinking of celebrating Independence Day, we will be celebrating hunger, so that we understand where we are. But as it stands, we may not be able to do that because there's tension in Edo.
So you don't complicate the situation.
That's so we don't complicate.
All right, I'll come back to you. Let me quickly link up with Uwaila, who has been waiting patiently to be part of this conversation. Uwaila, thank you again for being a part of this conversation. Just give us your major takeaways on a general scale. I mean, taking an helicopter view of the whole exercise as a key civil society activist. What are the major takeaways from this election?
Oh, thank you very much. So the 2024 Edo State gubernatorial elections had some gains, recorded some gains on the part of INEC. However, there were also some issues, that were very alarming and, raised red flags, because it poses the question: what's up with our democracy? What is going to happen to our democracy? Because the more we continue to have issues in our democratic processes, the more democracy in Nigeria is in jeopardy. For instance, if you even notice the margin of lead, there was a decline, a drastic decline on the margin of lead. The last 2020 election in Edo was 84,000 margin of lead, the difference. But now it has even dropped. It's now about 40-something thousand plus. So that is an issue. So there are some observations that occurred during these elections that were worrisome for us. And some of our key findings are around, well, let me praise INEC first for what they did right. There were improvements in the use of BVAS machines, upload of IREF, as at about 7:30 West African time, up to 92% of the results had been uploaded on IREF, which is a plus, considering the last election that happened, the last off-cycle election in Bayelsa, Imo, and Kogi. So that was a plus for INEC. However, there was also some challenges, some setbacks. There was late commencement of elections in certain polling units as a result of the harsh weather conditions. During our Ezra, so there's an election security risk assessment methodology that KDI, Kimpa Development Initiative, carries out, where we raise issues around security, around hotspot security issues, to say, oh, so local governments and these local governments are likely to experience violence, do long-term monitoring, to observe the pre-election environment and provide that to security agencies and other critical stakeholders, including INEC, so they can start early preparation. So one of the our forecast was on the weather condition that there was going to be a 40% chance of precipitation on the election day. And we'll raise this. We'll try to relate to INEC through various media channels to enable them prepare You know when it rains in the Edo, there's usually flood to enable them prepare. However, there were still some setbacks. We realized that there was no adequate preparation by INEC. So elections did not start on time in certain polling units. And of course, there was widespread vote buying, which is really worrisome. It was in two phases. There was one that had to do with impunity. It was impunity of vote buying. It was not even systematic. It was just openly. People were just openly selling votes and politicians were buying. Political parties, party agents, they were buying. They were complicit to this. Then also there was the systemic one. There were even distribution in certain local government areas. There was distribution of you will be surprised, as little as pasta. There was distribution of money. People were buying votes as low as 5,000 naira and 10,000 naira. And this is worrisome for our democracy. The election has to do perception, and that is something that INEC has not taken into cognizance. For instance, and on the election day, we observed around three major criteria. We did around election security and mitigation to say, okay, let us check the electoral environment. If there's any alarming situation going on, quickly raise it with the security agency so they attend to it. Of course, the police came out to say they made up to 6 arrests of people that were trying to buy votes. Even the EFCC was also involved. They made arrests of people that were trying to buy votes. However, there was widespread of vote buying, which was really worrisome. On security, even though this electoral process, compared to other elections that we've had in Nigeria, was relatively peaceful because this election did not record any fatality. We don't have any recorded fatality, which is a plus, for electoral processes. People do not necessarily have to die because we're having elections. So that was a gain for INEC. However, and again for the security agencies, because like one of the panelists already talked about, the police deployed 35,000, security agents to Edo State to conduct this election to ensure the peaceful process. So it was relatively peaceful. Of course, there were pockets of violence reported here and there, as around intimidation, harassment, and what have you. There was that. We had up to 17 reported cases in our election day data room. However, you can say it was relatively peaceful since there was no fatality. However, there were certain issues after working around election security and mitigation, intimidations and what have you from political party agents. We also worked around election result management, which was also worrisome. Because from the data that we got from INEC has, like I already mentioned just now, it has to do with perception. So whether you do the right thing or not, if the people have a negative perception of the process, then there is a problem. And it leads to apathy. You can even notice even from the decline in the number of voters that came out for this election, it dropped drastically. And if only a little amount of the population are coming out to vote, then that is worrisome because there are a large number of people in the state, and everybody's voice is important in electing their leaders. But the more people get disinterested in these processes, then the majority of the population are disenfranchised. They're unable to cast their vote because they do not believe that their vote counts. Now, during the election collation process that was live on TV, if you notice, when the state collation officers come out to say, when they read their results and any political party raise an issue, what you hear the collation officer say, the state collation officer will say is, that is noted. Why is that so? Because INEC has a 75-day period. On the Electoral Act, Section 65, you have within 7 days to address whatever issue is being raised, but we didn't see that. So it was noted, and why are you rushing to call results? I don't think that's necessary. So if there are issues from all political parties, I think they should be addressed, and you have a 7-day window. And INEC has not been making use of this. It's not just in the Edo election. The only time they have applied this was during the Adamawa elections. Apart from that, we've not seen INEC do that. That was worrisome. And it's important for INEC is already suffering a perception deficit. People have lost trust for INEC, considering issues that arose during the Bayelsa Imo Akogi elections, the 2023 general elections. People already have distrust for INEC. So if the process, INEC needs to, find ways to ensure that the process is as transparent as possible and that the trust of the people is redeemed on INEC. Then also the last criteria, I mentioned around election security and mitigation. I talked about election result management process. And also, I'm talking now about election campaign finance. So we also monitor that. So who is in charge of monitoring the amount that political party or that candidates spend? Because on the electoral, there's a limit.
I mean, so much to take from you on the show today. But I will come back to you in a moment. Let me just pause it there for a moment. I'll come back to you so we can talk more about the election finance that you were just on the verge of, talking on. I'll come back to you in a moment. Let me get back to my panelists here in the studio. Peter Agwebo, one thing that has come out clearly in this election is the reduction in the number of electorates deciding who becomes the next governor. Remogolo a while ago said the population of Edo State from 2012 has increased, or from 1999 has increased.
Yes.
About close to 5 million, or about 5 million, yeah, or thereabout. But we are seeing the decrease in the number of people participating in the election. I mean, what do you make of this as a challenge in this election?
Yeah, thank you very much once more for having me. Peter Agbebo is my name. Yeah, you know, it has not been in the secrets whereby we keep lamenting over voter apathy in the country at large. You know, for Edo State, which we'll focus on, you agree with me that over time, the activities and functionality of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has actually been a very great measures for people to actually feel encouraged to coming out to vote and to also participate. It is not just enough to actually pinpoint the fact that election day, during election day, voters or citizens of voting age who opt to come out to cast their vote are reluctantly making efforts, or some are not even making any effort to come out and vote. Let's look at it from the pre-election. You know, a lot of persons who deem it fit to even lackadaisically come out to register in the continuous voters registration. Some of them actually do this for the fact of, okay, probably they want to make use of their voter's card as a document purpose, maybe for it to be used in the in bank and for other means of identification, not literally for the purpose of voting. And this has gone to show that yes, there have been a lot of interest that, you know, the interest for the citizens are no longer there. Take for instance, previous elections have actually showed to us that a lot of persons do not feel encouraged to come out again and cast their vote or participate in election processes. The 2023 general election is still very fresh in the mind of every Nigerians, especially in Edo State, where they believe that their votes didn't count, in as much as some of us opine to the fact that their votes actually counted at the state level. Okay. You know, but looking at the House of Assembly election, it actually had a different twist on that day. And if you look at the voters' turnout of the last 2023 general election compared to the just concluded governorship election, in fact, it shows to you that our democracy is actually languishing. Our democracy is suffering. In fact, let's not use some negative words. If not, we would have just, look for other adjectives for it. So people are actually not encouraged to come out and participate in election day activity or to exercise their franchise on election day simply because they feel that their vote does not count. And with the recent happening in the just concluded governorship election, the public opinion should not just be taken for granted. When you see on IREV that the number of votes cast is more than the number of accredited voters. This did not just happen in few local governments. Some of the election observers who were actually accredited in the governorship election, in their report, it was captured that close to 14 local government areas that this overvoting actually happened. And it is there on IREV. These are verifiable facts that you can easily go to IREV and check. So that goes a long way on telling you how our election process is actually in a greater trouble. So when it also shows that there is no integrity in our ballots. So when our voting system lack this ballot integrity, because at the end of the day, it's all going to it's coming back to who won the election. And how do you determine who won the election? The number of votes casted for each of these candidates. So when there is no integrity in this process, I tell you, people feel discouraged to come out and exercise their franchise on election day. And to us in the civil society group, it is actually more burden to us because we know how much time and resources we invest prior election processes. we not just monitor election day activity or pre-election day activity. Part of our pre-election day activity was to monitor. We also monitor political parties' primaries, because these are actually the defecting states. Because at the end of the day, it is whoever they brings up that the electorates are actually coming out to vote. So it is a lot. It's also not encouraging to us in the civil society group for us to now come out, because every day we keep up interacting with security agency and also with the INEC to also know the way forward, how we can also be of assistance. You will agree with me that there is no in fact, only we can say 2% of political party activity is actually being channeled towards voters' education. They don't do that. This is supposed to be their core value, their core activity.
On the part of INEC?
No,
on the part of the political parties. Okay.
Political parties. Okay. So you see political parties only going there to tell you things about the other political party, not even spending time in selling their candidates. So we think that for the fact that political parties are not taking this voters' education serious, at the end it rests on the civil society group and also on INEC. And will you agree with me that these political parties have a wide range of audience? They also have more resources to also get across to the voters. We've always seen political parties doing jingles for the people to come vote for them, doing banners, billboard for their candidate. But we've never seen any message targeted at encouraging people to participate. Maybe go collect your PVC or go register for your PVC. We've not seen any voters education material or messages telling people to participate in a peaceful election. All these are not coming, probably because they feel they are also going to be the beneficiary, whatever ways it turns to. So we, as civil society, the voter apathy and the activities of INEC is actually affecting our own work in terms of trying to, conscientize the people, mobilize the people for them to come out and vote on election day. So the issue of the Edo governorship election is just another mirage for citizens of Edo State who had hope on the electoral management body, which they believe that yes, their votes will definitely reflect the integrity of the ballot. Okay. So these are many more the challenges that actually led to voter apathy in the country.
Well, I'll come back to you in a moment. Solomon, I've heard people say, well, the umpire itself did well in terms of the conduct of the election. But by the time the exercise now moved from the conduct of the election to the collation and announcement of results, we started seeing some manifestations. I don't know if you agree with this.
Politicians are not always sincere. So for whoever benefits, it works well. I listened partially to David Golo's deposition on issues that borders around politicians. That they're all the same. They're Siemens twin. Just that a smart physician has been able to separate them and give them different names. If you look at it, I see 6.5 dozen. I'd ask across the line, which of the political parties did not buy votes? Which of the political parties did not attempt to rig election? Because we're there, we saw a lot of things. Like we mentioned, we are just happy that the election was relatively peaceful. There was no casualty, no fatality. Didn't mean that there were no compromise. In some centers, at some voting union, police centers, there was this comfortable compromise amongst political parties. It'd be like, look at it now, they know themselves. They will just allow the rigging on one way. Like highest bidder takes it off. It all happened. And then people are talking about the umpire. When you do not buy, you do not sell, nobody will buy. And if you ask me, and I'll tell you without fear, that all the actors were found in the act of an attempting to buy, but just that the highest bidder took it. That was the issue Uwa was trying to speak to. I listened to, I can't remember which of the stations, when somebody was talking about it's only, I may not want to mention a political party, only one of the political parties' candidates among the 3 major political parties, as it were, did not have enough money to buy votes like his mate. And I asked, what happened to the primary where dollars were being used? It's the same thing. Ask me again, Sonny Duke, which among the major 3 political parties did not have issues with their primaries? Which of them? None. So you see that that thing transcended the internal democracy of that political party into the intra-political circles. And that's what created the tension. All the noise we had, we're just trying to, look, I had an interaction with 2 politicians from 2 separate divides. Why one was saying, they paid like this. And the other one said, we needed to up our games. So it became like, now normal. And that, I'm sure that was what Peter was referring to.
Okay.
That it become like buying of votes has become a norm. That if we don't check, it's another way of creating voters' apathy. Because people who didn't have money for dinner, lunch, or breakfast knew that it was a market day on election day. So they needed to go to their polling unit, sell their votes, while the buyers, who are the politicians, buy. So coming back to your question directly, that, well, at the voting era, it seemed okay, but at the coalition circle, the one you refer to as rack centers and coalition center, that figures changed. Baba, I'll say without fears, it was a manipulation attempted by all the parties, but it was clear that all animals are equal. And then in the game, some became more equal than others. That's my view. And I'm sure this is the view of very many of us, because like we mentioned, some of us have been on this tracking for over 3, 4, 5 months prior to the elections. And we saw a whole lot that has been in play. Okay. And this may just sound like it not matter. We may be recording 20%, 21% of votes or voters or electorate now. If we do not curb this menace, I can tell you that in the next general election, we may not have up to 15% of voters coming out. Because the perception, because looking at the all-circle elections, and then looking back at the previous one, you sum them together, there will be a conclusion that a no can't, they will still buy them. And then that's what the politicians want, because when you don't come, possibilities are, yes, that they will use you to count the scores and then make up their circles. Okay. So we must do everything possible to ensure that we discourage the ills. Part of our review, we talked about the issue of, because in Abuja, Peter, if you remember, the issue of transportation.
Logistics.
We have also discovered, because I think there was an analysis around that people shuttled buses. One bus was now having to shuttle between destinations rather than a vehicle facing a destination, another facing another, which is to say that there's shortage of vehicles. We have also come to understand, because there's a clear accusation by the, I think, National Vice President of National Union of Road Transport Workers, who are the original contractors for mobilization, that the INEC recs are the major problems. If you notice at the election, the vehicles used were not just vehicles of written National Union of Road Transport Workers. You'd have seen Union Shuttle and all other names attached, which is to say there was a subcontract inside a contract of a subcontract. And you know, everybody wants to make quick money.
Yeah.
And that has a long way of affecting votes because people waited. There's an area around Oredo Ward 1 where I think it's Zomo Primary School where voters got there very early. As at 12 o'clock, though as at that time, INEC staff and security agencies were already on guard. They couldn't vote. We went there at about 2 when election results were almost, votes were almost running up because by 2:30 we expected to stop. They could not do anything. The reason was because they said the beavers could not kickstart, and as such they could not do anything. It happened not just only there. We're just saying things you can lay hold of.
Yeah.
So I think that as much as we give credit to INEC, because whether we like it or not, there's an improvement
from where we're coming
from. Where we are coming from. It is not an uhuru yet. There's still a lot INEC needs to do. Yes, better this time. They had civic engagement, interactions with civil society groups and major stakeholders, but they need to build more on it and post themselves on the very negative trend, because majorly politicians and INEC are the reasons why you are having voters apathy. And if we do not call voters apathy, elections will just be like nothing in Nigeria.
Okay.
And let me clean it up with this.
Yeah.
It is high time INEC started regularizing and doing what they refer to as continuous voters register as truly continuous voters registration. And they should stop the issue of collection of voters card to distribution of voters card. What the difference between collection and distribution is that you don't expect the voter or electorate to come to your office, because after elections most INEC offices do not work, coming to look for card that they will not get. Oftentimes, Sonny Duke, your bank will notify you when your ATM card is expiring. And most of the banks now do not even need you to go to their banking or to get your ATM card. In the front of their entrance, there are usually machines. You just go, input your data, and they take your biometrics. Your card will roll. You don't need a staff to stand by you and ask you all those series of questions before you get it. INEC can make our voters card like an ATM, so that it will also reduce this effect of people traveling and moving from one place to another.
To vote.
So to vote, Sonny Duke, you have your ATM here. Your bank may be situated at down Sapler Road. That's where you open your account. You understand? But you can use your ATM at Oluku, so that in the end you can have a little uplift, and what they say steals and game up, so that in the end you can have more voters. Because one of the reasons people don't bother to go out is the fear of the unknown, and then having to face, in quote, harassment, threat, and in the end, I beg me, I just stay. But if you know that if you come and there's a polling unit near your house, you don't need to travel to Oluku. You can just go there, provided it. Yes, and cast your vote and go back.
Let me pause it there quickly. Bring Waila on board again. Waila, you were talking about the issue of vote buying, election financing. What are the findings? What are the feedback? What are the pullouts along those lines?
Okay, so quickly, thank you. I'm going to bring it in from before the election. So, according to the Electoral Act, Section 88, subsection 2, it stipulates a spending limit for gubernatorial candidates, which is at 1 billion. Who is monitoring this? INEC is not able to come and provide with. Is INEC sure that Aswe Godalo, that Modio Kwebolo, that the Labour Party candidates and all across all 80 political parties, that all of them did not exceed that limit? Also, the total amount that an individual can donate to a candidate that is running is 50 million. Who is monitoring this? So there are a lot of unchecked expenses and money is going on. And this is also part of the issues. Beyond causing internal party crisis, it also affects election going forward. That's why we have the do or die attitude in Nigeria when it comes to elections, because of resources that have been invested into it. Now, bringing it down to vote trading, it is really worrisome. And if you notice, like what I was mentioning just now, voters are vanishing from the polling units. What is going on? If people are no longer coming out to vote, then meaning the elected officials are not representing the people. They are not the choice of the majority of the people. And for me, that is worrisome. And the vote buying is because people know, politicians are beginning to see that because of the introduction of technology, it is getting more and more difficult to circumvent the process. Okay, so that is why vote trading is going on. And of course, because of the current inflation of the economy, it's also worrisome. And the high employment rate, poverty rate in Edo. So politicians have leveraged on this, to buy people's vote, to be fraudulent with their vote. And these are problems that we've experienced in the electoral processes. And when it comes down to the collation process, I'm still going to go back there because there's something I was going to chip in. For the ballot integrity, we have a ballot integrity project in KDI that we do. And one of the problems is about 20,167 votes are missing. And we are wondering where that has gone. And that is why I was raising that concern before, that INEC has within 70 days, 7 days rather, to address these issues. Why are you rushing to call results? And like Mr. Someone had already said, the 18 political parties are complicit. Politicians over time, it makes you wonder, are they really patriotic to Nigeria? Because even during their political private campaigns, you hardly see them with the Nigeria flag. They are raising their political party flags. So you are wondering, is it for the people or for themselves? The change they are trying to drive, or the governors they are preaching, is it for the people? For instance, the number of accredited voters was 604,132 voters for the total number of accredited voters. That year, that yielded 570,690 valid votes, according to what INEC read on TV for everyone to see. And now we had 13,275 votes that were invalid. That is rejected, but that's another issue. And somebody had already talked about voter education. I don't think politicians should be the one conducting voter education because they are the beneficiaries of the vote. We cannot leave it for INEC or for a few stakeholders to start conducting civic voters education when the political parties that are beneficiaries of the vote can afford to do so. Then also now, what now happened is there was a total of 583,965 votes cast. This leads to a discrepancy of 20,167 accredited votes. That is an issue. So where are the votes missing from? That one is another problem. And somebody already talked about poly units, cancellation of votes. Now the form EC40G was uploaded in 22 poly units on the IREV. And during the collation, there was no collation officer, no returning officer, election officer that talked about cancellation because they were asked, were there any issues? Was there cancellation? And they said, no, there was no cancellation. What about the EC40G that was uploaded in 22 polling units? And the reason these concerns are worrisome because they continue to impact on the people. It increases voter apathy, and it is worrisome for our democracy. If we begin to have elected officials that are not selected by the majority, then there is a problem. Now, talking about campaign financing, it's not being monitored. There is use of money, and it is not being, even though there was warning. And like I said, our pre-assessment of the environment because of the inflation that was going on and what have you. KD had earlier, tried to reach out to INEC and send that message through different means, and even police and yes and other stakeholders that there is likely going to be likely going to be widespread vote buying during the 2024 gubernatorial elections in Edo. We didn't see much being done about that. Only 6 people are arrested. And even the people that were arrested, that's a different conversation. I don't want to veer too far. Would they be punished? Because when people don't get punished, INEC is supposed to monitor campaign financing. INEC is supposed to punish electoral offenders. INEC is not able to do everything, even to collect the electoral processes alone, to handle logistics and what have you. They seem to be overburdened with all of this. So who is punishing these people? Because when electoral offenders are not punished, it emboldens people, it emboldens citizens, to be involved in fraudulent activities during electoral processes. So there are a lot of unchecked things that are going on in electoral processes. And these are creating loopholes that are further widening. Because the more you create laws, the more you create policies, the more politicians find ways to circumvent this process. That is really worrisome. So what do? We keep trying to find ways to fix it. Because this ballot integrity project showed a 6.04% inflation in the result that was declared by INEC. As much as INEC, they had some gains, some of the panelists had already mentioned, they had some gains, which was Beaver's functionality improved. I'm going to give it to INEC. Beaver's functionality improved. Of course, upload of IREV, like I didn't mention, they had some gains. However, there are still some conversations that are ongoing. Although election is coming now, and I would expect that INEC by now start trying to put in place all those issues that were experienced during the 2024 election so that they do not repeat itself. But however, it seems we are having the same issue over and over again, and the issues are not going away. So what is the problem? Is INEC overburdened? Do they need to be onboarding? Do they need to distribute some of this work that they're supposed to do, are not able to do? Are they supposed to distribute it to other agencies? to support them? Do we need to establish an electoral offences commission? That is under conversation to ensure that these electoral offences are punished. Do we need political parties are supposed to submit audited reports? They do not even comply. Are there sanctions for them? So what happens when political parties do not comply? Because whether you like it or not, money is very important in politics. Who's tracking this funding? The number of jingles on the media. Well, we're on that project, we've done an analysis, we're going to have a report that we'll likely share with you if you want to. We have a report on that, on the analysis. Who is tracking this? The monies that are going to this, is this not even disenfranchisement of Nigerians that are not as economically buoyant, as the elites and have skills of governance to help the people? It's worrisome and it calls for concern because we all cannot run out of this country. It is our country and we need to find ways that we can make it work. And it starts from our electoral processes to make sure that we are electing leaders. By now, I don't even expect Nigeria to be recording cases of violence. I know it's a process and we're going to get there. I'm hopeful. But however, we need to keep calling out these things. Yes, INEC has done well. Yes, security agencies, they did their best. But there are also pockets of reports here and there that political parties were present, where vote trading, vote buying was going on, and where intimidation and harassment was going on, and they did nothing. I'm not about to say they were exactly complicit in this, but I'm saying they can do better. If Nigeria does not get better, we're all trapped here.
All right. Well, I thank you very much. Very beautiful. I'll come back to you maybe on the last lap of this conversation, but let me quickly get back to Peter. I mean, the conversation, they've been quite revealing as far as the conduct of this election is concerned. But the question that I asked Solomon a while ago that has to do with the coalition part of the election. What's your take? And then most importantly, former President Goodluck Jonathan said, now we can see that even the technology really doesn't change anything within the context of election in Nigeria. But we know how technology has revolutionized the conduct of election in other climes. Even in South Africa here, people can vote from anywhere at the comfort of their homes, and then the process goes on seamlessly. I'm finding it difficult to understand the use of technology when, for example, election is taking place, results are being uploaded into IREV, and then it gets to a point, the uploading stops, is discontinued. I'm finding it difficult. Maybe you can make us understand it because you are a civil society activist. Peter.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Snedjuk. First, it is not okay to say that despite the technology application to our election, technology will not change the electoral process. Technology definitely would change the electoral process. It actually will reduce some form of manipulation. But the question is that how is this technology being used? So the usage of this technology will not be the conversation. So I, for one, I think it is a good step to have grown into the use of BVAS machine for our election. And it will also be another good step in the right direction for us to also up the game in terms of using the BVAS machine, not just for accreditation purpose, but for also voting purpose. Then there will be no need for us to be counting ballot papers at the end of the election. No need for us to be scared of rain, having to touch the ballot paper. There will also be no need for us to be scared of ballot paper and ballot boxes being tampered with on election day. So it will just be after your accreditation, just like when you make use of your Google form, whereby whatever I do here, if I share the link with other person elsewhere, they can definitely see what I'm doing. Yeah. There's also some registration you may want to do with using the Google form online. It will only allow one access, allow you to register once using your email address. Yeah. So if we've grown to that extent of making use of our BVAS to vote, after your capturing, it opens your page where you see the information on the ballot paper seen on the screen of the BVAS machine at the voting cubicle, just for us to screw and touch the political party you want to vote for. Then at the back end is being recorded. Immediately it's being recorded. That back end will not be the IREV, whereby we don't need to wait for official collation. As you are voting, it is counted everybody can only view, but cannot edit.
Can influence it.
Yeah, cannot influence.
It will remove invalid votes.
It can remove the invalid vote as well.
It may not remove invalid vote, because at the end you may not be able to vote well. Depend on the line that will be designated for each of the political parties. But however, it's going to definitely stop overvoting in terms of the number of accredited voters being different from the number of vote counts. So these are the kind of improvements we can actually make in our
let's
voting,
because our time is
in our voting.
Quickly share your thought with me. I mean, a new government is on the verge of being installed in the state. What agenda are you setting for the new government?
Yes, looking at what we have in Edo State, we have a new governor who has been announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission, who have the constitutional power to declare candidates for any election. I think, because we can still remember that there is no political party candidate that does not have a campaign manifesto during the just concluded governorship election. So it is always easier for somebody's idea to be implemented than getting an idea from someone else. So since it's already the idea of the governor-elect that he has a five-point agenda centered on security, education, agriculture, roads, So I think it should, within the next, after he's swearing in, within 1 year in office, he should be able to touch this sector.
Okay. The five of them.
The five of them. Okay. We also believe that government is continuous. So whatever project this current governor is doing, those laudable projects, because it cannot be that all the projects he did will be meaningless. There are definitely going to be a lot of projects you can actually build on to improve for the betterment
for continuity, right?
Yes, for
all right. Let me quickly get the last word from you on agenda setting for the new administration.
Towing the same line that the incoming governor should take very clear note that nothing in life is permanent. Life itself is transient. So is power. And if he wants to have success, he must do an open governance system. He must engage in open government practice. He must engage the civil society. He must engage the people. He must work for the people. He must know the needs of the people. So he must be engaged in need assessments before embarking. And then he must run an all-inclusive government system. Because if you do not, you will have a problem.
All right. While I quickly share with me your final word, setting agenda for the incoming government as we bring this conversation to a close.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to take you from where Mr. Solomon stopped. It's not because I'm a female, but yes, an inclusive government, it should include enough women in this cabinet because of the value that women bring. Because those states has not, of course, I saw a little improvement, but if you look at the last election we just, it was just one female political candidate. So I think those states should be more inclusive, putting women in positions where they can provide valuable insights and improve the overall needs of the state. And also, like they've also talked about, it should make sure he addresses the peculiar issues of Edo State and improve governance for all, because he's governor for all and not for a particular political party. So his allegiance should be to the people of Edo State first before the political party, because he's first an Edo indigene before being a member of any political party.
Very much. I mean, I agree with you and I support you wholeheartedly on the idea that more women should be brought into government. I mean, you brought a lot of value to this conversation, and that's just the quality that women can also bring to any government. Gentlemen and lady, thank you for coming on the program. Solomon, it was a delight to have you here, and Comrade Peter, thank you
very much for having me.
And while I thank you again for being a part of our conversation today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.